Oh, there he is. Perfect timing. Good job. Good morning.
Oh, sorry. I had it on sign. I have to put it on sign. No, I can't. I need to save it.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, we'll take citizen comments with a 3-minute maximum. Any subject can be talked about. So I'm going to open the floor up. If there's anyone that would like to speak from the audience, just step on up, state your name. Do we need their address for this meeting?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, yeah, name and address, please. So if there's anyone like to speak from the audience.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for your hard work working on this project that is near and dear to a lot of hearts. Depending on what side you're on, we're still trying to work to a common solution. I would start out by commenting that this is an eclectic community, and herein that does cause part of our problem because we have people that are long-term community members and they might live in houses next to people that are short-term rentals. And it happens in condominiums. It happens in every neighborhood. I live in Island Moorings, and I'm telling you, it's a long-term type community where you can't do short-term rentals. But a beach home owned by a family, it's not a lot of difference living next to one. So we have the issue everywhere. Now, the issue is there's 2 or 3 issues that rise to the top, which I heard y'all talking about: trash, parking, and nuisances. And certainly, I think as a city, we should try to improve that. Even though I own some short-term rentals, I think that we could probably do a better job. I think we need to be fair as we've done it. And I think if we're going to set standards for short-term rentals, in some cases, those same standards should apply to the regular homes as well. If we're going to say that if you have 2 parking spaces and you can't occupy more than 2 people, then maybe we should do that in the regular neighborhoods too and see how popular that is. In other words, we need to be careful what we do and not over restrict short-term rentals. Be fair, treat them as you'd want to be treated yourself. We have, when it comes to trash, we have ordinances on the book that really take care of it. If it's not done, I think that what's reasonable is to give, in my neighborhood, most people work and they don't take their trash cans in until 5 p.m. when they get home from work. Now, if we're in a short-term rental neighborhood, I understand they're making phone calls at 11:02, want to know why their cans aren't out. So if we're going to apply a standard, it needs to be equal. At 5 p.m., maybe that's the number. So just to talk about that. Now, parking, I was on the city council for 6 years and planning and zoning for about 15 years. And I always pushed for parking. And the prevailing attitude of the majority at that time was that's the little PUD or NUD's problem. It's not the city's problem. Well, the chicken has come home to roost, and it is our problem as a community. And so since we allowed properties to be developed that didn't have enough parking, maybe we need as a city to give them some solutions, at least to those, and then fix it going forward, make sure we have enough parking. And when I say that, I think the city probably needs to provide some public parking spaces that are available, that not free of charge, where the city at least breaks even on it. And I suggest maybe the old computer center location, maybe Charlie's pasture, but we need to give, instead of setting these rules, okay, you don't have enough parking, so we're going to condemn the property you got. We're going to give you a solution. And it's easier for them to obey the law when you give them a solution. At the meeting that I attended the other day, there was a lot of talk about, it seemed like the excitement was to give the property owner, which would be me, a ticket for something that other people are doing. And I realize that I have responsibility as a property owner. But if I borrow your car and I'm driving down the street, they don't come and find you and give you a speeding ticket. They give you the speeding ticket that's driving the car. And I want to remind you folks that we should hold the people that are doing the activity accountable first and foremost. Obviously, if the property owner has a history of putting the wrong people in and not dealing with it, then it's a different animal. But you shouldn't be giving a property owner that lives in San Antonio a ticket for noise because his tenants are making noise. And yes, the management property. And here's another suggestion. We're in a really unusual situation in this country, but we tend to go, we tend not to take care of things the easiest way. If the city had a policy, if you called in a complaint, well, have you called the rental property company first? And if they don't answer, then they do call the city. But why don't we go to the source, and it would save the city some phone calls. And most property management companies want to do the right thing. And no, when you have multiple properties, you can't stake somebody on every street corner to watch them. But that might be a solution. And I don't know if the phone numbers are posted on the signs. That may be something that we want to do in the future. But I guess in closing, I want to make sure that these solutions that we come up with, these cures that we come up with, don't exceed the problems, because I really haven't heard a lot of data or anything on how many complaints, what the nature of the complaints are, how often they're having to be taken care of, and how they're being dealt with. So, I think that, if we've got something that generates 10 complaints a year, that's probably a low priority compared to something that gets 10 complaints a night. And I hope that we use some judgment as we deal with these problems. But we need to do them in a fair, reasonable way. Put yourself in the place of the homeowners and put yourself in the place of the short-term rentals. The short-term rental people pay the same property taxes as everybody. So we're all in this together. And Port Aransas would be about the size of Aqua Dulce if we didn't have tourism. Okay, we wouldn't have all these restaurants. We wouldn't have all these amenities that we all love so much. And so we've got to remember that tourism is our main reason. It doesn't mean we have to let them take over the city, but there are reasonable restraints. And I think it's time to look at some of those restraints, but let's don't go overboard. And let's be careful. Those folks have you there in public office going in the newspaper and talking against tourism and all these Facebook posts I see. I mean, we're in the business of selling Port Aransas and have been for a long time. And folks, I was here when there wasn't a lot of tourism. It's tough to live here if you can't make a living.
If you could finish up, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's really, in closing, that's really what I've got. But I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Can you state your name, please, sir?
My name is Mike Hall.
How about the board, Tim? Who's up there? I don't know.
Oh, okay. If everyone go around.
My name is Dale Christensen with Tradewinds Vacation Rentals.
And I'm Audrey Hall with C&P Realty. We do sales and vacation rentals and HOA management, all that.
Tim Park, City Council.
Craig Scott, P and Z.
And my name's Nicole Ware, city staff.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good morning.
Please state your name and address.
Pat Kuklenberg, 410 Mercer, Port Aransas, Texas. And I would normally wait till you get to this on the agenda, but I have to leave early.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that the recycle bins at the rentals should be removed. I would do a lot of walking in the city of Port A, and I see a lot of the totes that are recyclables filled with trash. So I think that might eliminate some of the trash problems. And I know that y'all are talking about having a additional tote on the sites for the rentals. I think that would also be really good. I live at corner of Mercer and Oaks, and we have a new three-story short-term coming in there. And I can tell you right now, they're working on the fence to go around the property. And there's one truck parked there. There's not going to, if they can get 2 trucks per parking space that they have there, it'd be tight. I don't know how many more golf carts. They do have a garage, but I understand that doesn't count as parking. So I think that we really need to look at the occupancy and the parking and make sure that we have enough parking for our visitors to use so that they're not in the street or on somebody else's property. And I don't think that, I know Mr. Hall said 2, but most people that live in homes, I mean, they have at least 2 vehicles and they have at least 2 parking places. And they're not visiting with what I see today, when I have 4 children, they're all adults. And when we traveled in one vehicle, all 6 of us, and maybe 7 if they had a friend. But now it seems that kids come in their own vehicles often. So it's just a different time. And good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please state your name and address.
I'm Elise Calvert. I live at 316 West Avenue A, just down the street.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know there's a lot of problems, and Mike did mention a lot of them. But one in particular, I feel that could be handled quickly and easily is the toters. Everybody has to fill out the application. Have you read the application? It states on here, toters shall be placed at curbside at 7 a.m. on pickup day and removed from curbside after your toter has been emptied. There are toters that stay out 24/7, 365. And recently, I ended up having a collision with one, which was in the street. And it was the day after it was picked up. And everybody gets this piece of paper because they have to fill it out in order to get one. So to me, this would be the simplest one to start with to enforce. And when I complained about it and filled out a form, which was the first time I was ever given a written form to fill out, I was told it's all over town. Okay, if you know it's all over town, why haven't you done something about it? And that should be the simplest one to start with, because it is in writing. There are noise ordinances, but this one in particular, everybody knows or has seen at one time or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else that'd like to speak?
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Turcotte, and I own a home at 305 Avenue J that my grandmother bought in 1957, and we rebuilt after Harvey because we had to, in our houses that were there. We're on a very irregular sized lot, like many lots in Port Aransas, so it's like 125 feet by 35. Since we built our houses in 1960, so we had to knock them down after Harvey because they were under code and we had no insurance. My sister lives there. I live with my companion at 12th on 200 North 12th Street. So obviously on Avenue J, we used to be out in the sticks. Now we're a main thoroughfare. We're like Highway 77 because the post office, coffee waves, which is a nightmare. We're surrounded by houses, and most of those houses have been there since I moved here full time in 2015. They're short-term rentals, and the traffic causes us more headache, I think, than the short-term rental people. But the A-frame hasn't been rebuilt, so we don't know. The jury's not in on that. The parking is atrocious. On 12th Street, we have the new 6 condos, which the same builder is fixing to build over off of Avenue J, opening up 10th Street, that's never been opened in all my life, which is a long life. And that's going to cause us a lot of grief in our little tiny space on Avenue J. So there's going to be 13 condos being built there right now as we speak. And that's going to cause us more concern. Over on 12th Street, where I live and reside, where the new 6 condos are, when it rained 2 inches last week. Well, the totes, everybody's already addressed the totes. There's totes on one side of the street, and then there's a huge bay boat, not a bay boat, a golf boat, and there's big 250 truck, and then another truck behind that. So you can't get around, and then it rains 2 inches and it's flooded there where it's never in my life been flooded before. It's just, we can stand up here and talk about the nightmares of it all over and over and over. I know that short-term rental, we've never short-term rented our house, but I know that tourism and short-term rental is something that's not going to leave this town. But I think that the citizens of this town, the full-time residents of this town deserve as much respect as the STR owners that Mike Hall spoke about. My grandmother paid taxes, we pay taxes, all of us pay taxes, but what about the fabric of the community? I know that you've heard from Barney Farley, who's generational here, and I've talked to Nicole a million times about STRs. Like somebody spoke earlier and said, it's all you hear, or it was on the meeting the other day. Somebody spoke about how when you go out on the streets, all everybody sits around and talks about is short-term rental and what's happening to Port Aransas. I work at Casa Amano, and everybody that comes in there, they're long-term customers that have been shopping there forever, 18, 20 years, as long as Deb's been there.
Time's about up.
Okay, well, everybody's concerned about short-term rentals. We got to figure out some kind of agreement. We're not enemies, we're residents. And I wish that we could all act that way. Thank
ma'am.
you.
Anyone else that'd like to speak?
Can we speak on an agenda item when it comes up?
Yes, I'll explain that here in a second, but yes.
Okay.
If there's no other comments right now, I'm going to read through the items for consideration and then talk about how it's going to operate. Discuss and take action or pass on the following. Discuss solutions to issues regarding short-term rental occupancy. Discuss solutions to issues regarding short-term rental parking. Discuss solutions to issues regarding short-term rental nuisances, trash, noise, etc. Discuss enforcement, accountability, and responsibility regarding short-term rental issues. We will allow citizens comment throughout the discussion. It, again, will be limited to 3 minutes per person. It must remain civil. Otherwise, I will ask you to sit down or to leave. So we'll open the floor up now.
Anybody want to start?
So, just go ahead, Audrey.
I'll just start with, I do understand and I am open-minded that there are citizens that have concerns regarding short-term rentals. But I also agree with Mike that I'm worried that we're kind of, it feels like we're jumping the gun to make solutions to things that we don't have all of the data on. And I have requested data from, I emailed Nicole, she said Carla was going to provide that to me. Okay. Regarding the citations that were written in 2020 and 2021, what they were for, regarding these topics, because I'm hearing a lot of, people's opinions about stuff, but personally, as a property manager, and I don't want to get on someone's radar now, but I personally have not been called all summer for any noise complaints at any of my properties. And when I say personally, my phone number is posted on all the signs. And when you call after hours, it goes to an answering service. But 4 people, my husband and I were the owners of the company, and my 2 managers get the text message, whatever time it is, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, we're woken up, we get the message and we deal with it. I did not get any noise complaints this summer. I did not get any over occupancy complaints this summer. I got one call about a parking issue where at Station Place, my guest pulled up right in front of their house, which is at the end, and kept someone from backing up. And we went and dealt with it right away. They were just dropping off their elderly parent. And as far as trash, I've been called in Paradise Point a couple times because things blow out and it's the wetlands and we hurry and get someone over there and we pick it all up. But I'm not informed of anything going on a regular basis, like it seems like the city is, or, I mean, you get emails, you get phone calls. I'm assuming a lot of them are on the weekend when we have most of our people here and y'all don't work on the weekends. So I would like to see everyone working together a little bit more to let the managers know when there is an issue. And I know that some properties don't have signs, but we are going to be doing the new signs. Everyone should have a sign. And also, it's not that hard to figure out who is managing the property if you don't see a sign, because unless it's an owner that self-manages and don't advertise online, which that's how you get bookings. So I'm sure they're out there. If you could just give us a call. And now if that management company does not respond, then I think that's when you would take it to the city level so that they could get involved and talk to that property manager.
So
Yes.
how many properties do you have?
I have about 115. Some are long-term, most are short-term.
What's your approximate split? Do you know? I mean,
Oh, I probably only have about 10 long.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
So if you're on a development like the one on 12th Street where there's 6 houses, there's only one sign for management company on this condo. So you're gonna have to get out while we're driven back in there
Mhm.
to see, and there's no signs, but it seems to me there's always 2 or 3 totes that are left there all week. You know,
Mhm.
from Tuesday to Friday, which is the pickup days. So who do you call? Who would I call? Am I gonna call the city and complain to Carla? What good does that do?
I would call
And,
the
you know, Carla
manager.
says take pictures. Well, how many, pictures do I need to put in my
Right.
phone? But how do I go about finding out who is gonna get those totes off the street? Because that's a
Sure.
narrow street anyway.
So let me address
And there's
this.
trucks.
Sorry to interject here, but
That's okay.
we are working towards, I mean, we've passed an ordinance now, which is going to require each STR to have a 24-hour phone number on it. And it's going to be, has to be
And that's
on,
in January, right?
yes. Yep. And so it'll be on every, if it's a condo, it's going to be on their door, next to their door. If it's a single family house, it will be listed so it's visible.
Now, to your point, I understand what you're saying. There's 6 condos, there's 3 toters. You don't know who it belongs to.
Yeah.
In that case, I don't know, but I would think is that an HOA that they don't have a dumpster, they just have toters, or does
They're
each
individually
individual
owned.
individually owned? Yeah.
So,
I,
if it's a business, to me, if you own a business, you should be controlling and managing your business.
Mhm.
I don't care if you're in Idaho or in Fort Ransom. If that's your business, don't you think?
Right. And personally, for my employees now, getting them out at 7 a.m., we're not here till 9. So we put them out the evening
So
before.
the ordinance, but I know that Ms. Calvert had the sheet that you signed, but the ordinance for the city is that you can put them out sundown the night before, and you have to have them back up at the house by the next morning. So you do have, quite a bit of time, almost 36 hours, I would say, that you can leave your trash can down at the thing.
And trash is not always picked up right in the
Right.
morning at every property. So what we do is we put them out at the end of the day. When we're leaving, we send someone out to do all that day's trash, pull them out. And then the next day, we probably around 1 o'clock, when we've started inspecting properties and doing walkthroughs and things like that, we pull them back. So I know not every property management company is as on top of it as some, because I don't have as many properties to manage as some other companies do. But personally, my business does have something in place to deal with that, and we're very we don't want to do anything wrong. Like, so if you have something that's bothering you and you call us, we're going to go deal with it right
I
away.
mean, we do appreciate that. I mean, when a management company is on top of things, yeah, we know things are going to go wrong. I mean, we just went through Sandfest. Holy cow, we had so many freaking issues.
Right.
I understand things are going to happen, and we want to let you know we do appreciate management companies that are on top of things.
But we also understand there are some that are not, and they're also individual owners, and there's also locals that don't follow all the
Yeah, I
rules
mean,
either, so.
that's very understandable.
Yep. I believe that the toter that Ms. Calvert hit was a local. It wasn't a short-term rental. But Carla does make those phone calls to get people to pull in their toters. She sends out letters to people that lets them
But
know,
how do
hey,
I know whose toe belongs to which house?
in that situation, it's probably pretty difficult. I would call the first property manager you see, and they'll probably be the ones to take care of it.
Or
call
they
one of
might
the
know,
other
like, oh,
ones.
that's not mine, that's so-and-so's, and let you know.
On Thursday, city council is going to vote to select a third-party company that's gonna handle all of our registration. Part of that is gonna be a 24/7 complaint hotline. There's also gonna be an online version of that. So that's gonna be people that are dedicated to the city of Port Aransas 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that you can call and make those complaints to. They're gonna have an escalation process, so they'll call the property management companies so that you don't have to. They'll handle each situation in the appropriate manner and then notify the police or code enforcement.
So
if it
that will
gets to
save,
that
that will
point.
save a
That's
lot of the
gonna help a
issues
lot.
of who owns a,
Yeah.
I mean, so you don't have to call the management company. You call this 800 number.
You have to basically know where you are, where the property is.
So that's the software program that the city's gonna decide on Thursday.
Yes, ma'am.
And my question about that is if someone does call at, midnight, is the person taking the phone call with that company, the one that's gonna call the management company?
Yes, ma'am.
So it won't involve any city staff?
No.
Correct.
that's-
Now it's gonna be logged, which
Right.
is a situation that we're not that well versed in right now. We get the phone calls, we deal with them. It's a situation that if it doesn't escalate past that point, if it's a situation that we take care of right in that moment, that's not really logged anywhere. With this software company, all of those issues are
Everything
gonna
will
be
be,
logged. So we're gonna have a lot better data on the number of complaints and the places
Right,
that the
'cause I
most
think
complaints
there
are
are
coming
some
from, which I think is gonna be
Pockets.
helpful.
Yeah.
We agree, and we see that too. We just don't have quantifiable data besides us just saying, yeah, this area is an issue or this area is an
Right.
issue.
Which is one of my worries is like, we don't know everything and we're trying to make decisions and changes and, new ordinances when we don't really know everything.
Anyone else?
So, well, I'd like to hear, Dale, you own trade winds. What's your,
Yes,
what's
so-
your data since we don't have any
so-
other data?
My name is Dale Christensen and with Tradewinds Vacation Rentals. I was selected to be on the committee and I got rid of my vacation rentals just a few days ago. I had 38 prior to Harvey, with lots working. So currently I have 0.
Right.
I went from 38, came down, turned away people. We were very boutique style. I've talked with the city and I said, do you still want me in there? Because I want to be a citizen in there. The way that I have always addressed vacation is, first of all, I live here, so I am a homeowner. And as a homeowner, the one thing I do not like after a long, busy day is somebody disrupting my peace and quiet. Be that another homeowner full-time, be that a second homeowner that comes on the weekend or lets their friends use it, or be that a short-term rental 2 or 3 day guest. I consider all of those the same thing. A nuisance is a nuisance is a nuisance.
Yes, sir.
So in delineating this versus that versus this, I had homes where we lived on Sand Key. I had two homes right across the street. There's nothing like sitting there and watching guests not do what they're supposed to do. Sometimes I'm able to make a phone call, a text. I have even at times called the city and asked for police to help on there. So I take the point of view that it should be, everybody that comes here has to be respectful of all the others. When you start infringing on somebody else's peace and quiet, or you park way too many cars, and the 4 toters that are at the house can't be picked up for 3 days and they're across the street, I'm going to call the management company. I have in the past when a guest leaves and they didn't pull it out in time and the trash cans are full, the lids aren't down, they missed it. yes, you get the contractor's bag, you go over there, you fill them up, wear some gloves, and you haul it away to the dump, and then you pay at the dump to do it. Why? Because there are guests, there are citizens, there are short-term rentals, they're paying to rent, they should have room in their trash can. So that's my mindset of we're all together. And I'm excited that it's come up to this point because, parking is one thing. I think having signs up there, first of all, when they're going to have signs, our original ordinance that was in 2015, when we all started doing this, it said you're going to have a sign. There are some that have never had a sign. I have had to call because my guests were being bothered by somebody in a home, and I've called that sign, and I've called that sign for 4 hours. And I've said, that's it. We're calling tow trucks and we're going to have them, and you have to live that. So having a 1-800 number will help in logging. We've talked with the city of how many 3 strikes and you're out thing did we have? Rick said we hadn't had any. I think it just takes a couple of those and everybody will straighten up. I think if there's parking for 2 vehicles in a home, in a neighborhood, you don't advertise parking for 4 vehicles. The house comes with a golf cart and you bring a boat. That's false advertisement. It's not fair to the guests that are coming that show up with 4 vehicles. Now they have 2 golf carts and the boat, and they're wondering. And this house is across the street from my house. I feel for the guests. What are they supposed to do? The public parking thing that we've talked about, it sounds a great place, but very few men are going to take their boat and their Ford F-250 that parks in, what's the depth of a park?
18 by 20.
18 by 20.
I'm sorry, 9 by 18. I apologize.
9 by 18. 9 by 18 is a parking space based on what the city says. I think most pickup trucks that are extended are around 20 or 21, correct?
I would imagine.
I think they are. So it's not fair to tell somebody, we started on our houses where we had problems. We put the length of the driveway. It is 44 feet. If you're bringing a truck and a little car, you make it fit in 44 feet. One of the unique things, it's not a solution to what we're dealing with now, but we always checked in every one of our guests personally. The high tech with the internet and everything you buy, we still have to be high touch. People are paying a pretty penny to stay in some of our homes, not just the nightly rate, but all the little fees you stick in there, it goes. And so in correcting all of these issues that everybody knows, we're getting to the point. I think the ordinances that we do have from the beginning, they were good. We've all had discussion. We're like, if we just would have done this, maybe we wouldn't be at this point. But I am glad that the city, both staff and council, is now ready to say, okay, we now have to think of this because it needs to be an enjoyable experience for everybody. If there ever was in the past, you heard, well, we don't want to upset the tourists. There are some tourists that I upset. And if they don't come back, that's fine. But the 4 houses around them with the mom, the dad, the grandpa, and the 2 little kids, those are the ones that I want to come back. And that is a community issue on it. Some other web locations, Whitefish up in Montana, things got out of hand up there, and their tourist bureau came back and said, be a steward of the community. If you come here, these are the things we want you to do. You're going to treat our locals and our businesses well. We've heard lots of stories about how not well treated some people have been in the summer. And so I think putting in a code of conduct, now granted, not another ordinance, this is more of a philosophical thing. Pick up your trash. Please don't take glass bottles. We all know the rules, but if we as a community bring this in
Emphasize those.
where we promote it on a property management's website. We can put them somewhere on VRBO, not the big rules, but just say, here's the blurb we talk where we say, hey, this is what we want. Because this place isn't for everybody. And if it isn't, you got to go someplace.
And I believe
else.
we could get the chamber involved with this to promote it on the,
Yeah.
I mean, I think they'd be very willing
But
to do
it's
that.
time now to do it.
Yes, sir.
We've created this thing. And now
I'll
we
get
need
you
to
here.
come back and sweep it up and get it the way we as a community want it for people that live here. I don't think it's going away, but.
Can a management company designate turnkey require some houses can only have 4 cars or however?
Oh, yeah. And if you go to like our listings at the bottom, it says can only accommodate, and we'll say standard size vehicles, not, big trucks. Like we have it, and we say, and includes,
Yeah.
it includes a golf cart, it's not like it comes with it, but I mean, a golf cart counts as a parking spot.
So how would you guys feel as a property management company about issuing parking permits with the expiration date? So if you have 1 per bedroom, because that's the required parking. No one can, if it's a 3-bedroom house, they get 3 parking permits. It says expires on their day of checkout.
Mhm.
It seems to me that from a code enforcement, it'd be easy to go 7 a.m. Saturday, Sunday morning, somebody could go by and say, there's cars parked here without parking permits. We got to ticket them.
What do
Sure,
we
so
do?
Parking is legal on the
Yeah.
street, so
Yeah.
we can't
But
ticket.
hang
somebody that's
on,
legal.
but you can, problem areas, you can red stripe.
Right.
That would have to be the solution.
So we could,
that's
so you
what-
do it in combination of those 2 things. That way you solve over occupancy, you solve, can't pick up trash. You solve, the mail delivery problems, issues like that. And then it seems like enforcement would be a little bit easier than if I go to stayed at Sandcastle condominiums, we were issued a parking permit, you put it on your dash, had your date, and any cars that parked there, they were able to tow because they had appropriate signs and
Right.
everything else. But a ticket or, they made sure.
Yeah, a lot of the HOAs already require us to give them parking passes.
Mhm.
Individual houses, we don't do
But
that.
it wouldn't be that big of
It wouldn't.
onerous thing.
No, it wouldn't be. My concern about the red striping on problem areas is what if my street was a
our street.
problem area and red striped, then, what if I have a family gathering or how many people can park in front of my house?
I mean,
Am I
the-
restricted in
Possibly.
that?
So some of the things, that have been discussed is Galveston is implementing something, where they're issuing permits and stuff. We're looking to something similar to that would kind of really restrict on-street parking. So we don't have those issues. We hope not to get to that point, but
So the 1 bedroom, 1 parking space was an ordinance that,
About 2015, 2016.
Mhm.
yeah. So we still have places that have 2 parking spaces, but yet they advertise 4 vehicles. In my opinion, that should not be allowed. It's not fair. Well, then they can't then they shouldn't rent that house.
Right.
I'm just saying,
I would agree with that.
that's
Yeah.
the way to do it in Ocean Village. And I was an owner of short-term rentals, meaning I owned the homes and dealt with them. I was a property management and I was a resident here. Ocean Village requirements 4, other than in 3 houses, I think that are 3-bedroom,
They
that
were
got
1 per
squoze
bedroom.
in there,
Right,
1
they were
per
1 per
bedroom.
bedroom.
You will have people who will fence off, cordon off their under parking. Well, just the fact that they've done that, they don't have parking for
before.
4 people. So they caused themselves their issues. There are strong HOAs. Village Walk is a very strong HOA, and they've been able to do it with parking permits and do it. If you drive down the alleys in Village Walk, a Ford F-250 doesn't even fit in the driveway. They've got to go in this way. Well, there goes their 1 parking space. So either the city decides, look, people still drive trucks. And I know we go by the international code of
I think that's, it's city ordinance.
It's city ordinance.
It's a
So we-
city
yeah,
ordinance,
yeah.
but we adopt something. If they need to make it bigger on future stuff, well, then possibly they need to do it. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep, packing people in. Yes, 4 little Fiats will fit across the street, but this is Texas. And we've seen it on our streets. And sometimes you come home and you think, oh, this is going to be, and they're not overpopulated. There might be 7 people in the house, but they all brought their trucks. So, before you get to occupancy, and then trash doesn't get picked up, that's where the red striping would have a serious effect where there's problems. But I think the property management companies have to be given a chance. I think signage needs to go on all the homes.
That's,
When the city says we have 2,000 short-term rentals, but you can go on to VRBO and see 3,400, they're not all registered.
Well,
And they're
that's-
not all up to
and
date.
that's what,
And the
that's,
software programs can take care of
And,
that issue.
and this is a way to do it.
The
So
software program will take care of that, Nicole?
Yes, ma'am.
so what's going to happen is they scrub the internet looking for short-term rentals, whether someone's posting on Facebook, on Instagram, on Craigslist. I mean, it scrubs the internet. It pops them out. If it doesn't have a specific address, then a physical human intervenes and looks. I mean, it's very, very tech savvy.
It's detective.
Detective,
They are good
basically.
at what they do.
Yes, they're good at what they do. That's their only job, is to do this.
Are we talking parking now?
We can talk about any subject here. Lisa, did you have
I
something?
just wanted to say, Audrey, you said something about, you think that the city, the council and everybody needs to go at a slower pace.
Mhm.
But the problem that I have with that is the builders are not going at a slower pace. So there's 6 condos that were built on 12th Street, and it was quite obvious that there was no good parking in these 6 condos. I mean, it didn't take a rocket scientist to know that. Hence the reason why the Gulf boat and the 250 truck and the other 250 truck and the totes were there the other day. Because there's no way you can get all that stuff in there. So now the same builder is building 13 over by my house. So if we're gonna slow down the action or the ordinances, changes, whatever, the builders need to slow down.
All right, and it's kind of, I get that they're connected, but that is something that was approved by, what is this, P and Z or
Right, and then
city?
ultimately,
Well,
yeah.
Right.
Well, just
So-
building permits.
So to be slowing it down because they're on the end of 12th Street, they're just clearing pasture that's never been cleared before. And I watched all the animals leave there. They started on Monday and there's fixing to be, who knows, a 4-plex, 2 condos, who knows, I don't know.
is parking space allowed to be fixed?
Very sad.
People get grandfathered. Basically, once
Are
they
you-
have their plat, that's what it is.
But parking's not dictated by a plat.
No, it's the permit, it's in the
That's in
permit,
the
building
building
permit.
permitting.
Who changes that in the city?
City council would
Council.
change that by ordinance.
Has city council had conversation that
We
they'd
have-
like to do something
have.
like that?
It's just one of those things, we kind of put the brakes on it while we get through this, kind of see, we're all going to meet again the 26th, I believe. We're all going to come
But if
together.
bigger parking spaces help,
And that's why, that's the
Okay.
object
I
is.
put
then
that
come-
down.
you got that down?
I mean, so this will come up again on the 26th. We're going to take all the best ideas. Hold on, folks, hold on. We'll take all those best ideas, bring them to that meeting so we can begin to work through the process. This is not going to be a perfect process. I want to point that out to everyone. This is not going to be a perfect process. We're going to make mistakes. The STR owners are going to make mistakes. The builders are going to make mistakes. But we just need to figure out a good compromise for everyone. This is a tourist town.
Yep.
We do live here. We all live here. All right, one at a time. I think Kathy was first and then Mr. Hall second, please.
Can I come up there?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're free to come up. In fact, that's actually a little bit better so it can be recorded.
We
All
get
righty.
them in the audience too.
Hello, my name is Kathy Fulton. And I'm fixing to be a resident of another location. So we're going to use my PO box 457, Port Aransas, Texas. So what I want to say is on parking, this is where that's the main reason I'm here. And on parking, I appreciate what everybody's saying, and I am not picking on just STRs. I'm picking on all the parking here that's going on in Port A for issues. And I think we're missing, or I would like us to look at this bigger picture of what's going on with all the cars that do come in, say whether it's a short-term rental or whether it is somebody's home. It's not just the overflow of parking issue. What I would like everybody to remember, that is also the number more of vehicles that are congesting our small streets here in this town, just traffic lights. Okay, we have more traffic now, especially in the small areas of town than we have ever had before. And a lot of this goes back, of course, to people coming in and they're bringing, 5 cars to what really would be better if it were like 2. I want to say in Santa Fe, up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I've spent quite a bit of time up there during the winter months. And so in this neat little area, the Chappelle Staub Street area, that's right there in the old downtown. These are all old officer barracks kind of quarters. And some of them are individually owned, but the majority of them are owned by this one guy. It's just kind of like this little, kind of a large little square area. And I've stayed in almost every one of these funky little places, and they're all very cool. And I make it clear when I call them, I got a big truck, because it's Santa Fe. Everybody's got a bloody damn Subaru. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just everybody's got a really small car, and I've got a Ford. So I make it clear that I'm going to need room to park. And they always, they've been very accommodating. Sometimes it means me having to, go park on the other side of such and such that's their parking. So they have some areas where extra parking, what I'm trying to tell you is in some areas, they have these areas for extra parking for the larger vehicle. And keep in mind, Santa Fe's got a big cramped street problem going on. And then other places you may be able to park where you are staying. Or what happens is in some of them, they have on-street parking, but, and this is where I want to go with this, these streets are narrow too, as everybody knows, very narrow. And so they have on-street parking on one side of the street, and you have to have something in your window that either the rental agent gives you, even if you don't meet with them, your little packet's at the door, and in your packet is a little thing that says, here's your thing, don't lose it. You got to have this in your window. If you don't, you're going to get a ticket. And trust me, they are out there every day issuing citations. Make no bones about it. One time I had just checked out and I pulled up just to go get the last piece of my luggage out. And that little meter gal was right there. And it was like, oh, wait. I just checked, and had to stop. I've not gotten a ticket yet. And they also have a regulation, and they do measure it 6 inches from the curb. So I want us to sit here and stop thinking that we can't do some stuff to regulate this. Now, on these narrower streets, like I'm talking Avenue B and over there where Avenue B turns into 12th and then basically all of 12th and all that, we can't continue to allow this parking issue on both sides of the street. I watched it the other day where there were vehicles parked on both sides of the street there on Avenue B, and this huge rig, this huge RV thing, I mean big, was trying to come through, and it was like even I was panicking watching.
Kathy,
He was
If you
panicking.
could wrap it up, please.
So
Thank you.
what I want us to think about is how are we going to deal with the extra traffic that we keep promoting? We need to consider being a little bit harder on people about, please don't bring every one of your vehicles.
Well, I think that's where the code of conduct comes into play that we need to get the chamber on board with. It's post every rental company posts it. I mean, I think it's going to take some time. I mean, to implement this, it's not going to be an overnight thing. Yes, we can do ordinances and enforcement. And, again, it's not going to be perfect, but yes, I mean, I think some red striping is going to have to come into play in some neighborhoods. Avenue B probably is a good example, just because it's an extremely narrow street.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kathy. Appreciate your time.
In that regard, I'd like to point out that we have to remember that Port Aransas is a driving destination. It's not something that people fly to like Santa Fe or in Colorado when you're going and they say you only have one parking space, but you just rented an SUV and you all ride together. You know, people, I get it. I think it was Kucklenberg who said, you know, your family would ride together in one vehicle when you go somewhere. But, you know, I don't live in the same location that my brother lives or my mother, and we might all take our own vehicles to get there, and we have kids. We can't all fit in one vehicle. So it's just something to keep in mind that we're not going to if we can encourage, we can ask that they try and limit, you know, the number of vehicles, and we can tell them how many parking spots there are. But in the end, we're a driving destination. We're getting more and more popular. People are coming. So I still think that we need some sort of public parking option. And I agree with you that a lot of guys don't want to leave their boats, and I get that. But if it were a guarded, you know, something, security lights, you know, because yes, going forward and from 2015, we have these rules in place for building permits and, you know, how many spots you need, but we have a lot of structures that were built before that. And so we have to deal with the overflow parking from those.
But shouldn't that just be the limit? If I'm looking to buy or make an investment in a short-term rental and it's 1,200 square feet, it's got 4 bedrooms, it was built prior to this, and I just have 2 parking spaces. Okay.
I mean, parking should, I mean, in my
Then
opinion,
parking spaces are two places. Well, but it's 4 bedrooms. I can put 12 people in it. Well, it's 1,200 square feet, putting 12 people. And if they come in 2 cars, let them have at it. You know, they might call the air conditioner people with that much heat going on in a small
It
square
definitely
footage.
shouldn't be
But-
advertised the way you're saying.
It's
not
not
right.
fair to anybody.
You shouldn't
to do
say
it
that
that
it
way.
could park this 4 and you can bring a golf cart and a boat and it only has 2
Yeah.
spots. That's not right.
No.
And I don't know how we catch that.
That's
Except
just when you
looking at
find them,
the
they get
advertisements.
dressed. The city's gonna do more, correct?
So the software company that we're
Right.
selecting
But
should be
once
able
the
to.
city gives us our report to whoever, we're not just gonna have data. City's gonna go action on it to get this in here.
Action on what
Action
specifically?
in you're not even registered, but yet they're short-term rental.
yeah,
We can
Absolutely.
do stuff, but the city council is willing to put the money we get from the hotel taxes goes into this, because this certainly is tourism.
It doesn't.
It
But-
doesn't.
we can't.
can't.
It's gonna come from the registration fees that
Okay,
are paid by STRs.
okay.
Which is why the registration fee was increased in order to cover this.
And if you dodge a registration fee
They're gonna
and you
find it.
have somebody, is it gonna be a nice, scary fine to the point where we never have to collect one?
Right now, we don't have anything in place for that,
But we
it's-
can get one.
We're gonna, it's,
besides citations.
yeah, it's gonna work for, I mean, it's in the process.
To
I
the
mean,
point of where the idea is,
Yeah, it's gonna be cheaper to register than it is not to.
good.
Mr. Hall, if you could come up, please. Anyone who wants to speak, just so it's recorded well, we'll get to you next, sir. Just come up front, please, so it's recorded.
My call again, 489 Margot Lane. And I do understand the sense of urgency from some of the audience wanting to get the fixes quicker instead of slower. And I would submit to you that we can do both. There are some really easy fixes that we can do immediate. For example, your suggestion of a 22-foot parking space instead of what we currently have, which I think is 18 feet, maybe 19 feet.
No, it's 18.
We could do that pretty quickly without too many problems. I think another thing we do with new developments, NUDs, PUDs, subdivisions, we ought to consider requiring we've got these parking requirements in place that kind of do the average. I think we need some visitor parking in those subdivisions.
Makes
I
sense.
think we need to set aside so many spaces per unit as part of their subdivision. So if you have overflow, instead of everybody getting mad at each other, they got a place to park.
Or boat parking too.
Yeah, and that should be provided by the developer, not the city.
No.
Now, that's going forward. We still got problems to fix. But one of the things that I learned being in your all's position, that when you start getting into the bigger stuff like red striping, you know, and all of a sudden I have a family party and my family gets tickets for parking there. There's unintended consequences.
Understood.
And we really need to go slower with those kind of actions. But there's a lot of stuff we can do that can be done fairly quickly. When I was on planning and zoning, when we found out the council was, for example, entertaining something like increasing the size of the parking space, when the developer came to us with a plat, we would say, it's not a requirement yet, but would you consider, you know, the 22 foot? Because it's going to be the rules pretty soon. And almost always, always they conform to it because they want their plat to be received in a positive manner. So I think, and as far as speeding things along, for the audience that may not know it, I mean, we've got to go through 3 months of readings. We've got to have public hearings. It's not a quick process. It really, and it shouldn't be. It's designed that way, you know, so that everybody can give their input, not just the people that are interested and are showing up for the meetings. So that's all I got. But we can do a hybrid. We can do some things quickly, and then we've got to give more thought to the ones that affect us more.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The name's Wayne Williams, 365 Mustang Boulevard in Island Moorings. Now, y'all were talking about putting up more signage.
Yes.
I'm a retired highway patrol of 33 years.
Yes, sir.
We've had
Thank
signs, I've written many speeding tickets. There's a speed limit sign. Same thing on golf carts. Don't go down 361. We put things on the steering wheel. People read the signs. It doesn't pertain to me. And that's going to be the attitude. The thing we need is some kind of consequences. What are you going to do? They park 5 cars and we can do red stripe. That's part of my solution is red stripe. I know Arthur doesn't like that, but that can give when there is consequences, and I look at Nicole because her husband's a police officer. Come in there, either ticket or tow or both.
I mean, and we are moving forward. I mean, we're in the process of hiring another code enforcement officer. I mean, so some of this stuff is coming into play. I mean, just let you know, I mean, it is, I mean, we're trying to proceed.
That's what I thought this committee was, to bring solutions, some solutions. And I know nothing, I'm with you, nothing's perfect, but we need consequences. If they violate, do something.
Understood.
Don't just calculate and come up with data. You got to do something. And then I don't expect the management companies at nighttime on the noise problem to deal with it. Because now you've got alcohol involved.
Yes.
You got alcohol involved.
That's
They
a
have
police
no
issue.
business being up there.
Yes.
You got to have that uniform officer.
Understood.
So those are some of the things I
Agree with you.
Anyone else on the committee here like to speak?
You said you had some data from last year and the year before?
Audrey asked to pull number of permits that we've written.
Citation.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My head, that's what I was saying.
Do you mind if you could share that?
Yeah, specifically, do you have
I
one?
was
I've
just
got a
curious
highlighted
about
list.
these topics, since they're what we're discussing are the main issues.
Sure. So I'll preface it by saying that most of the topics that are these main issues, apart from occupancy, the parking issues, the trash issues, the noise issues, those are typically issues that we take immediate action on. So with trash issues, we'll call and give them that opportunity to go out, like you said, go out, clean it up. And so a citation isn't issued in that situation. It's still a complaint that came in, but it's not a citation. So these citations don't automatically dictate how many complaints we've actually gotten.
And you don't log complaints at this time?
Right now, we do not.
But it will be.
Right. Got it.
I'm hoping January 1st that begins anew. So trash, she's only had to write 1 citation. Every other issue she's had taken care of
And they've
within
dealt
that
with it.
hour, and they've
Yeah.
dealt with it. Parking, we don't have any. Let me make sure. We don't have any parking. A lot of times we'll get parking complaints where somebody calls and says, "There's a million cars here," and we go and there's a lot of cars. They're all legally parked. They're parked in the driveway. Maybe they're parked in the yard, but that's not against our code. They're parked in the street, but they're legally parked there. So I would say the majority of our parking complaints end up in that situation. The other ones we get rectified. Now, we can't have cars towed. That's a police issue or a property owner issue. So I don't have data on if cars have ever been towed out of these areas.
Do you know if, let's say, our property can only fit 4 vehicles and they have a 5th vehicle, do we have the right to have them towed, the 5th vehicle?
From what? Where are they parked at?
Exactly.
Where are they
That's-
parked? If they're
that's
parked on
my-
if they're parked on the street, you don't
And
have the
that's my
ability to have
point.
somebody that's legally parked on the street.
What control do we have over it, really?
You
know?
can issue
can-
parking permits.
Yeah, you can
I know,
control
but
it
if
on
they-
your property.
So it's my rental, I manage the rental. It has 4 spots. There's 5 cars parked there. 4 of them have a parking permit.
Right.
The one that doesn't have it, is it towable if they're still
On the
legally parked?
I mean,
I don't
legally
know
parked
what
on
we
the
can
street,
do.
you can't have that car towed. It's legally
Well,
parked on the
That's
street.
my
Good to
current
guys.
ordinance. That doesn't mean that it can't be changed to be
Right.
something different.
As of right now.
Yeah, that's as of right now. It's
But
easy
that
to
would be
handle
if
in the
you would
future.
change it to where there was no street parking allowed.
If there was no on-street
And then that
parking
would
allowed,
affect a
it
lot
would
of
have to be
residents, too.
properly signed or striped, and then that could be towed. In
It's still a
Galveston,
message to the potential people that are coming in town that says, hey, you got 3 parking passes.
Yeah.
If they decide at their own risk to bring a 4th car, then they know that they're going to be at risk if they do anything and park in some illegal manner or over occupying. It's a good message to have. And
Sure.
I think most people will comply with that. They'll buddy up in cars because we know that when you're driving, 3 families to the same residence, that there are times that it was a luxury to bring that 4th car.
You could have fit in.
Well,
You could've-
and then the problem is the golf cart.
Right.
So they bring their vehicles, then they go rent the golf carts.
You include that. You
Yeah.
include it.
And
You'd be
it
straight-
should
There's
be,
other
yeah.
communities that do this. I mean, so this is not like a first time
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Florida does it and you plan for it.
Just say
You
a golf
pack
cart,
everybody
a
in.
golf
Is a
cart is
vehicle.
considered
It's
a
a
vehicle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So granted, you need 12 feet on a 4-seater and 14 on a 6-seater, but
Which right now is 6 foot by 10 foot is golf cart.
Yeah.
we need to get a bigger ruler.
How many streets in Port Aransas?
Lisa, if you could come up, please, so just so it's recorded.
Just a question. How
Yes,
many
ma'am.
streets in Port Aransas?
How many streets in Port Aransas can you not park on the side of the street?
there's-
Out of 100%,
There's very few.
Very
I would
very
say-
few.
I would say less than 10%.
So on 10th Street, when they open up that road, are they going to be able to park on that street?
There's nothing that's preventing them except for an ordinance that says if you park on a street, you have to have at least 10 foot dedicated to be able to get by. Same as an alley.
Could you say that again?
If you're
You
parking
can't
on the
hear
sh-
you.
I'm sorry. If you park on the street, you have to leave 10 foot of space to get by, for a vehicle to get by.
Which is extremely narrow for EMS or fire to get through. I mean, that's an issue with the fire trucks especially.
He wanted 20, didn't Nathan?
Yeah,
Wants 20 in between vehicles
Mhm. Yeah.
have to be available.
that's what, yeah, but it's not an ordinance current.
Not an ordinance,
Yeah.
but
Street is 20 feet wide.
before you
Yeah.
put any cars.
Right this
Yeah.
minute.
Yes, Kathy.
So I have one more question then about what you just said. In the ordinance, it says you have to have improved surface for parking. It doesn't mean it has to be.
For your
concrete.
required parking.
For your
So-
required, but so if they park in the yards
nothing
and on the
against-
grass,
There's nothing that stops that.
that's,
They can't, so if they're, and the parking requirements come with new construction. So if you're building a 5-bedroom house, you have to show me 5 improved parking spaces. You don't have to use them. You can have that 5 cars and then you can park your vehicles all on the grass if you want to. There's no ordinance that stops that right now.
can we do something about that? Because quite frankly, I am sick of seeing golf carts as being part of the landscaping that's taking over a lot of these places. And cars, just saying. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else from the audience? Any other members that like to voice concerns, questions?
I just wanted to point out that, I haven't lived in Port Aransas my whole life. I've lived here since 2009, I think. My husband is a lifelong local and his dad and grandparents also lived here. I've heard stories about how Port Aransas used to be kind of like the Wild Wild West when people would come and party on the beach for spring break and 4th of July and, other times of the year. And I think we've made a lot of improvements, based on the stories I hear and then what I see now. It seems a lot safer. My husband would tell me that during spring break, it was like, no, we don't go to the beach. It's dangerous, 4th of July, same thing, the major holidays. I just happened to Google, spring break. I just put 1980s Port Aransas just to see what would come up. And here's an Associated Press story. Spring break weekend includes riot and deaths in Port Aransas, 1985. 30,000 students were staying here on our island town. I know that things still happen, but I don't think that it's at the magnitude that maybe it used to, because we do have a lot of rules and a little bit more control over things. And we've made our beach safer with the emergency lane and things like that. So I just want to point out that it's always been crazy in Port Aransas. We've always had people coming, and I think that it's gotten a lot better than it used to be.
I mean, again, I'm going to state this as a fact, as at least my opinion. There needs to be a balance. If there's a good balance, most everyone's going to be happy. Yes, we're still going to have people on both sides that are unhappy, but if we can come up with a good balance, I think it would work for probably the vast majority of the people. Does most of the audience agree with that? If you don't agree, please speak up. I want to hear your thoughts.
Most of us in the audience are also residents. So
Right. Well, that's why I'm asking.
Short-term rental, no, you still live.
Right. And that's why I'm asking that question.
I have family.
I think a community effort, all of us working together, the management companies and property, self-managing owners doing a better job of, monitoring things that, what's within their control. And then the community members who, see things or, need things addressed, communicating that to the property managers and reporting things. If we all work together, I think that, and also educating our tourists. And I know that the chamber is working on a new marketing kind of plan. I met with them yesterday about trying to get a message out to our tourists on what we expect, of them and their, when they come to visit our island. I know there were ideas about maybe some signage, because I know when you go to Colorado, don't feed the bears. They're going to get in the trash. There's stuff everywhere. Don't feed the bears. You're not going to do that, or don't leave your trash out where the bears can get it. Maybe just educating everyone a little bit more, and then everyone working together.
Bring some bears in.
Yes, ma'am. If you could come up, please.
I want to tell you about one specific incident that happened to me. And since the hurricane, we have a completely different group of people coming in here. And there's a lot of the longtime residents are not here that used to be. But on 4th of July, in 2019, there was a group in the condo behind me shooting off fireworks, had little kids drinking loud, 1 o'clock in the morning, still going on. We said something to them. Well, you just need to leave. I called the police. It took them a while to get there because I'm sure they had a lot of different calls. But the ones with the little kids got in cars and took off. But the couple that was renting this condo back there, they just kept on, well, we paid good money for this. I said, I have been here since 1994. And if you don't like it, you need to leave, because we live here and you have no respect for the residents. And that's the type of a lot of the short-term rentals and tourists that I'm seeing now. They don't have respect for the residents. And where do they think they get their service? when they go to stores and restaurants, well, they have to come in, most of them from Corpus or Aransas Pass, wherever. But the tourists do not have respect. And I think the management companies should be held responsible, just like the condos. I've worked at 2 of the long-term big condos here. They had a set of rules. They gave every check-in. And if they didn't abide by them, they were struck. And they were not allowed to rent again. And the management company should be held to the same responsibility.
I'm just curious if you contacted the management company of that rental to look, because if we don't know, we can't go tell them you need to leave, because I don't want people misbehaving. But if I don't know about the situation, I can't ask them to leave.
Those condos are privately owned.
So they weren't, it wasn't, it was just their friends, the owner's friends staying there?
There are a lot of homes and condos that the owner privately rents out themselves.
Right.
I don't know how you're going to correct that.
Some of this will
Well,
be
that's-
corrected
yes.
by this
Yeah,
Because if they
upcoming.
advertise, then they're going to be caught.
Mhm.
Yeah, even if it's a Facebook post saying, hey,
Yeah.
we have a condo available for all my friends.
But it's not always online.
Right, and this is not gonna, please understand, this is to everyone in the audience, this is probably gonna catch about in the mid-90s, low to mid-90s. I mean, so there's gonna be 5 or 6% out there that aren't gonna get caught. Is it perfect? No, but it's gonna hopefully solve a lot of the issues. And I understand, and I appreciate your,
Well, like the one that I had to run in with the toter. Those people, we ended up, they didn't have an address.
Right.
Or street number. Nicole went down with me to find out exactly which house it was. Come to find out, they lived somewhere else, but they'd owned the property since 87. But there's always different people there all the time. So what are you going to do? Sit there and watch, see who comes in?
That's what they're saying. Hopefully with the software, they could catch something. But I mean,
we're not gonna have a perfect solution to everything. And I'm not using that as an excuse because we don't live in a perfect world. We are going to
I
have,
understand that.
and you know, I'll just refrain from saying anything else right now.
Thank you. I'm sorry I got to.
Oh, no problem.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
I think if we add consequences
I think that ultimately that at the end of the day, that's.
and whatever it
money.
takes
Yeah,
to,
money.
it's money to push, to get the consequences, to get the behavior that we want.
And
So, I mean,
educating them on
That could have been the
the
owners
culture.
staying in there. Sometimes guests of owners, because they're like, well, I'm not paying for this.
Mhm.
I'm a friend of the owners and I'm staying here for free. Some of those have some of the worst behaviors. That's why in our short-term rental, when you sign it up from the city, the owner is ultimately responsible, not the management. I believe it does say where it's not necessarily the management company, but the owner is also is the one who is responsible. They're just dictating that. And as far as the out-of-town people who rent on their own, one of the deals is you got to have somebody there on that site within 1 hour, correct?
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean the yard boy or
Well,
somebody
it
cutting
can
the
be-
lawn.
It can be whoever they dictate that.
I know,
to be.
but somebody that needs to make the decision about that. Calling a housekeeper to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go take care of something unruly, that's above and beyond that scope.
That's
Of it.
dangerous.
Well, that's where the consequences, the city, the police, and if the council is putting money that way to do the things it needs to do now, because it's only getting larger, correct? I mean,
Yes,
how many permits or houses are we gonna have in the next year? Dwellings, a lot, not 10.
We do about 200 a year, a
Okay.
little bit less than 200 a
And
year.
it's been growing.
Yeah,
It's
but
been
it's
pretty steady.
Okay.
It's, I mean, we're pretty much locked in between 1A and the jetty, right? I mean,
We have to
we can
grow
count
with it.
those. We can count those. There's gonna be another 250, maybe at the most. Everything else is south of town.
That's new.
And that's gonna be
new.
2,500
Yeah.
or more down
And
that
that
way.
the city
But
is
if-
responsible for, but it's,
Yeah,
in a-
of course
but it's
we're-
under a PUD, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
They have their own issues.
that's right. There's just not that much open land anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
there's infill lots and you can count them. You can look at all
Yeah.
the new developments and all the pieces of land and they're spoken for. Most of them are.
And we're gonna do our
plans in
part not to
place.
put more on a little piece of land that that got changed, right?
Yes.
They did.
yes. If there is no other questions or comments, we'll adjourn this meeting. So again, I'll give last chance to anyone in the audience. Okay, anyone on the committee here?
No.
Thank you for everyone's time. Thank you for keeping it civil and appreciate everyone's input. And hopefully we'll see all the members in the audience coming out on the 26th, I believe at 3 p.m.
3 o'clock.
And we'll go from there.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.